Hello and welcome to the Healing Streams Reflection. The title for today's post is The Shadow of the Cross. The cross, we know all about that. It's basic. I thought we would move on from there. That's what some might say, but we never have moved on from the cross. Its shadow falls backward and forward across time. We will never get beyond it, and we will never improve on it. We will never plumb its depth fully and say, we understand the cross now. Let's move on to other things. Holy Week represents the center point of all history. Christ is the sum and substance of the whole plan of God, which centers on the cross, a single tiny grain of sand in the hourglass of history. And yet, as the hymn writer puts it, towering over the wrecks of time. The all-time cover of Calvary, the cross, like a razor cutting through civilization. The death of Jesus marked the splitting of the dispensations. Until then, we had the four shadowings. Now we live in the light of the reality. Every day of Christian living is touched by the power of Calvary. In the Old Testament, the animal sacrifices symbolize what was to come. But the sacrifices had no power in themselves to achieve the actual removal of guilt for sins. They were a God-given device to provide cover for the repentant sinner until the complete and final sacrifice of Jesus Christ was provided once and for all time. Knowing that when the believer sinner comes to Christ, at that moment of conversion, the divine nature becomes part of the believer. The person is now a new creation, with all things having passed away, and all things becoming new. 2 Corinthians 5:17. In fact, believers actually have three natures. The divine nature, 2 Peter 1:4. The human nature, Genesis 1:26-27. And the sin nature, 1 John 1:8. Jesus had a human nature and a divine nature, but he did not have a sin nature due to the fact that he was not born according to normal procreation, meaning that Joseph was not actually his father. Rather, his conception was by the Holy Spirit, according to Matthew 1:18. Every other human being is born with a sin nature because we are born in the likeness of Adam, who fell because of transgression. Consequently, due to the fact that Adam was the figurehead of the human nature or human race, his fall contaminated every human who will be born into the world, because all, so to speak, were in his loins, according to Genesis 5, verse 3, and 1 Corinthians 15, 20 to 21. Whenever the believing sinner is born again, the sin nature at that time becomes dormant and is meant to remain that way. However, if the believer doesn't understand the cross as it regards sanctification, regrettably, the believer will find the sin nature once again springing to life and causing tremendous problems, which is the cause with most in the modern church. Beloved, it is clear and absolute clear that our willpower cannot in any way save us. Drivers who insure their cars are familiar with the principle. If time is short, the insurers will provide you in your car with cover note until the document proper comes through. You haven't received your documentation, but you are insured. As of now, they will tell you. So with the cross, the Old Testament sacrifices were like a cover note, keeping those believers of old sheltered from judgment, in the firm knowledge that the true and only valid sacrifice for sin was on its way. That is why the great curtain of the Old Testament temple was made redundant by the death of Christ. When Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to the bottom, as the Word of God informs us. The curtain had said to every worshiper, "Keep out. You may not enter at this point." Only the high priest had access to the holiest part of the building. And then, only once a year, and after special cleansing, as Jesus died, the temple curtain was ripped from top to bottom. The message was clear. You can come in. The way to God has been opened. Wrath and loved satisfied. Beloved, God longs to forgive every sinner. But every unforgiven sinner is not only in need of God. Each sinner also is an offense to Him and deserves everlasting judgment. Both wrath and love were satisfied at the cross. According to Romans 3:25, Jesus was the one whom God set forth to be a propitiation through faith in His blood. God is somebody to be propitiated. his wrath has to be averted if we are to be forgiven at all. If anyone sins, the Bible tells us clear, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ, the righteous, and he is the propitiation for our sins. Friends, God in his love wanted to forgive us, but his justice had to be satisfied. The cross provided for both to happen. That is why the Bible says, without the shedding of the blood, there is no forgiveness. And also it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sin. Here is stated, and it's clear what the Bible informs us, and even some Bible students call the principle of penal substitutions. Christ was the substitute for us. For his sacrifice, our substitution on the cross, to be effective, his sacrifice had to be deemed sufficient, and it was. Friends, Christ did what we could never do for ourselves. The Old Testament tells us the life of a creature is in the blood. Because of that, it is death alone that provides atonement and the averting of divine wrath. At the cross, God was intercepting his own divine judgment. Himself in the person of his Son. If you and I deviate from the truth, we allow human pride to elevate itself. And people assume, I can find my own way to God. You too can find your own way to God. But I don't need this done for me. Beloved, again, your willpower can never find your own way to God. Remember, the Bible declared in 1 John 5:11 that this is the testimony. God has given us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. Friends, this is the moment of the truth. And it's clear that life, eternal, is our key to our fruitful destiny. Knowing that one day will answer the highest call to be with the Lord. I pray that you and I, in this moment of reflection, and in this moment of surrendering to the finished work of Christ, and examining our faith, whether we are in Christ, the Holy Spirit will help us to once again respond to the open arms of Jesus Christ on the cross of Calvary. Thank you, and may God richly bless you for this time of reflection. And bye for now.